stitched, the whir in her ears, in her blood, in her bones. The work was necessary and numbing, numbing and necessary. She joined and seamed, seamed and joined, stitching and stitching and stitching, stitching the father to the house to the father, the son to the world, the job to the cross, stitching, forever stitching, the whir of the machine in her bones, in her dreams, in the Puerto Rican dishes she prepared, the whir of the machine, there always, there, stitching her son to school, to railroads of light, joining and seaming, finally left to stitch her husband to death, even in retirement, stitching her life to grandchildren, grandchildren to God, stitching, joining, seaming Spanish to English, Caribbean beauty to Philadelphia barrio, stitching, joining, seaming her spirit to God, her bones to her land, her dust, her sunrise, her rhythmic nights of Afro-Taino Spanish blues. Thank you.
Thank you, Lamont. Next up is a person who has written a number of books. He's a coffeehouse press poet and writer, but also an award-winning writer with the Miles Davis autobiography and the excellent, I just reread it after you left Detroit again, Quincy and Me, Miles and Me, which is going to be a film that's coming soon, and it's a great story. If you haven't read that book, please consider picking up Miles and Me by Quincy Troupe. It was Poet Laureate of California, and he's come back to retire in Harlem, and we're happy to have him on this side of the country again. Please welcome Quincy Troupe.
Is that yours?
Yes.
Thank you, ML. I'm sorry I can't stay because I have a friend who came in, my best friend came in from Los Angeles, and I'd like to hear everybody read ML, Barry, Ed, who I met when he first came here, came to my apartment. And but I have to go up home because he just got here tonight. He's already there. All right. So I'm going to read this one poem. It's an old poem that he picked for my brother. I just talked to my brother today, and I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. We know a lot of the same people, especially one of my homeboys who died, John Hicks, who was a great piano player. But this is for my brother Timmy, and it's about the streets of St. Louis. We walk streets of River Rhythm Town counting cars that pass for nothing else better to do. Warm, cold days now packed away in straw. And when at home on Delmar and Leonard Streets, living over Joe's Supermarket on weekends, would repeat from our window the same ritual all over again. This counting of passing cars. You took the Fords, I took the Chevrolets, but always the Cadillacs would win. And from our window on Saturday nights, we would watch the drunken fights across the street at Maya's Tavern, where black people died with ridiculous ease from street surgeons' knives. Summers brought picnics and barbecues, baseball games, and hot, funky parties where we styled hard, laid off in our bad summer rags. And on warm, idle days, on concrete playground courts, I would beat the hell out of you playing basketball until it got dark. In winter, we would bundle up tight in fast-shrinking clothes bought 3 years before when Daddy was making money playing baseball in Batista's Cuba. Or bought when Mother was working downtown being a desk clerk at Sonnenfels. And on frozen winter nights, we would fight like two vicious alley cats over who pulled the cover off of who. Afterwards, we would sleep side by side in the dark in our own spilt blood. And if someone was ever foolish enough to mess with either one of us, they had to contend with the both of us, sure enough righteously, stomping 11,000 corns on their sorry asses. But time has worn away those days as water rubs smooth in time a rough and jagged stone. You took the blues of those days, filled with sundews and blood, and turned them into rhythms. You played superbly on your talking drums before you heard the calling of your Lord sanctified. I took that beautiful song you gave to me and turned it into poetry. This poem I give to you now with a brother's deep love.
Thank you. Quincy Troupe. Next, I'd like to call up a longtime friend, editor of Lips magazine for many years, and very much a big part of the New Jersey poetry, New York, New Jersey poetry scene. Please welcome Laura Boss.
Thanks, ML. I can't imagine all the hours and days and years spent doing this, but thank you so much. Yeah, right. And it's really great to be here with everyone and to be reading with people I respect so much. This is called My Son is Worried About Me. My son is worried about me. He worries that I'll grow to have no money, and then no place to rent without money, and then no food without money, reinforcing his image of me starving and gaunt, and then with no food, a homeless mother. A few shopping bags, probably ancient ones from Annie Says and Bloomingdale's, her smelling of urine, her with dirty orange-streaked hair, her a worse embarrassment to him than ever. And so he declares to her on the phone he's going to help her get a condominium, going to erase the possibility of a homeless, reeking of urine, shopping back cart mother for all his friends to see, for his conscience to wrestle with. And also, after I die, I will will it to him, he tells me, and if he dies first, I can barely write that, he will leave his half to me, but meantime he'll pay half the mortgage, but I should mail him my check early, so his credit won't be ruined by my careless ways. And if he gets married, it's understood this imagined wife will never be able to get his half, or would I then, if they get divorced, have to live here with her, the two of us, divorced women, living as divorced women do, and me thinking, if he doesn't like her and can't live with her, then how will I ever be able to live with this unknown woman whom he will divorce and give his half of this condominium to? Is she worth my living in this condominium my son wants me to have? And I hear him silently saying, remember never to embarrass me after the mortgage goes through. Oh, darling son, I promise you, my son, not ever to embarrass you, except perhaps in my poems. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Laura Boss. I'm going to call up now another old friend in New York, probably one of the first people that I knew over 20 years ago when I started to come to New York to do readings and things. He's been to Detroit several times. He's a great friend. Please welcome jazz poet extraordinaire and author of the new book, Tony's World. Tony's Blues, isn't it? Tony's World, Tony's Blues. Please welcome Barry Wallenstein.
Thank you, Mike, for bringing us together for this and publishing this wonderful book. This is called Tony's Dad, and it's from a collection called Tony's World. Tony is a character who, early in the sequence of poems, needs to wake himself up to a greater generosity. In the middle, there's this one poem called Tony's Dad, which is the only poem in the book that is somewhat autobiographical. My father worked down the street all of his life in the meat market, and there was a period during the war, World War II, when he had to leave 14th Street, and he bought a small slaughterhouse in Burlington, Vermont. And this is set. I was a child, and I have memories of being in that slaughterhouse. And this is the one poem that is based on that memory. Tony's dad carried him across a river of blood. The fat in the slaughterhouse in the stone room, adjacent to the killing rooms, would clog in the drain, and the steer's blood puddled high enough for a young Tony to need either hip boots or a lift onto father's difficult shoulders. Tony loves to tell the story. As a small boy, I hugged a white butcher's coat blotted red. By the end of the day, slick and greasy, more red than white already, during the ride, foul and smelly, and I was right in it, almost joyful, and afraid especially of the butcher's eyes as they turned from their knives and hooks to my position on the boss's back. He was their boss, not mine exactly, but blame him not now for my imagination then about bosses and papas and different kinds of muscle than my own. And what do they own really, other than the lift and the carry? They bled the cattle, but clubbed the calves, all to do with the taste of the meat. And young as I was, I studied it. Thank you.
Barry Wallenstein. Barry Wallenstein, thank you. Next, I want to call on another longtime friend and sort of my mentor in this process, because it is true that Maria Mazziotti Gillan edited 3 fantastic anthologies. Unsettling America was really the first multicultural anthology ever published, which it's still available, and it's an excellent book. And then she did a sequence of books, fiction about being American, and then a collection of poems, of which I rated some of those, like Lamont's was just so good I had to have, and he was an old friend, but I had to have that poem in the collection. She's an American Book Award winner with her last collection. She has her collected works out, which is an encyclopedia, and she is one of my favorite poets in the whole world, and I just always enjoy being with her and listening to her read. Please welcome Maria Mazziotti Gillan.
I hope Diego Rivera doesn't mind. I just put a glass of water on him. ML, I want to thank you for all the work you did in putting this anthology together. Having put the anthologies together, I know just how much work is involved in getting permissions and making sure that people return papers and everything else. And I have to say, you didn't have what I had, which was my daughter Jennifer, who actually took care of all of that for me. And so I was very lucky and very fortunate to have a supremely organized person helping me to do something that I think I would have given up on otherwise. These anthologies are always labors of love, and I really want to thank you for this labor of love and for how much you put into it.
Thank you.
I'm going to read a poem called Growing Up Italian. When I was a little girl, I thought everyone was Italian, and that was good. We visited our aunts and uncles, and they visited us. The Italian language smooth and sweet in my mouth. In kindergarten, English words fell on me thick and sharp as hail. I grew silent. The Italian word balanced on the edge of my tongue, and the English word